With the emblem of the Three Heroes Church in hand, Naofumi heads off with his party and begins to believe that this has to have something to do with everything that's occurring. The reason why everybody is being the way they are toward Naofumi. There has to be a major reason. And this time he decides that even though his party is level 40, going to actually get that class upgrade is going to just slow them down, that he should go somewhere else. He's heard that maybe these other dragon hourglasses appear in other places, so that's what he's gonna do. He begins taking Ravtalia and Appa, and they begin heading out, but before they fly off, they're actually stopped. It's Melty and a bunch of royal guards. Melty begins to run over, explaining that they need to reconcile with the king, and that everybody has to be on the same page. They can't just argue like this. Naofumi shakes his head, saying that even if he wanted to, that's far from going to happen. He threatened Naofumi's party to the point where he cannot be forgiven. Melty continues to try to plead her case, but as she does this, Naofumi sees something behind her. Some royal guard is about to stab her in the back, but Naofumi immediately puts an ice wall right in front of him, then an earth wall to follow it up, and push all the knights away, throwing Melty on Appa, and he hops on as well, pulling Ravtalia up, and they fly off towards Shield Frieden. Melty asks what's going on, and he says that's, well, it seems like those guards are going to try and assassinate her. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to happen. And, well, Naofumi is the only one that can really protect her. She looks at Ravtalia, and Ravtalia even nods, saying that it's obvious that they were basically just pulling her out there to kill her and then blame it on Naofumi. Melty begins to kind of shed a tear and asks who the hell would do that, and Naofumi shakes his head. Ravtalia looks at Melty and says that she knows who would try to do that. So they head over to then Shield Frieden, via flying of course, but Melty says they need to go speak with the queen, that this needs to happen now, they need to tell her what's going on. And, well, Naofumi says that their class upgrades are just as important, they can go right after, but Melty insists, and Naofumi eventually caves in, and they change course to go talk to the queen. But this time, they're in mid-air, and frankly, nobody's going to actually be able to keep up with them. So they do make it to where the queen currently is, and when they make it, they begin speaking with the queen. Speaking to her about everything that's occurring, and she apologizes profusely for everything that's happening. But Naofumi shakes his head. Look, that's not why I'm here. Frankly, you need to keep your daughter safe. Your daughter needs to stay here and be safe as well, and I'm sure she's gonna be safer, well, with you than with a fugitive like me. The queen disagrees, saying that he is no fugitive, far in between that, and that Melty should be with him. That he's probably the only one that has the power to protect. Plus, she doesn't know how many of these people actually betrayed her, and frankly, it's obvious that the Three Heroes Church has done the same. Naofumi nods, saying that that's his plan. He wants to go to Shield Frieden, get their class upgrades, and he's going to jump at the action of defeating the Three Heroes Church now. And the queen says that that's a good idea, but will he be able to do it in time? He nods, basically saying that this is all a time crunch. They need to make sure that they don't single out the heroes quick enough, and Naofumi needs to defeat the source of what's going on, and that's the Pope. Naofumi takes Ravtalia and Appa once again, and tells Melty that he'll be back for her, that it's only going to be less than a day. He promises that. The queen says that she will not be leaving her daughter's side in the meantime, and he immediately leaves and heads over to the main source, the Three Heroes Church, but more importantly, to basically trade blows with the Pope. He realizes that the Pope is actually elsewhere, setting something up, and he sees the master quote-unquote plan that the Pope is in process of making. He sees tons and tons of his followers lined up, about to basically feed into this weapon of some sorts. He begins to hover over all these followers and tells Ravtalia, or asks her what they should do. Should he just kill them all, or should he try to encapsulate them? Maybe he can do it. Ravtalia says that avoiding killing is probably for the best. So Naofumi decides to make water appear everywhere, try to cover the entirety of this army in water, and then freeze them all into encapsulation. He wants to make sure that they're out of the picture immediately, so he'll deal with them after. Immediately after that, he dives toward the Pope with Appa. They strike the Pope and basically detain him instantly. The Pope looks to basically see where his followers are and asks them for strength, but he sees that all of them are captured.
How the hell? How'd you know? How'd you know about this? No one's supposed to know about this. How did you figure this out, you demon?
But Naofumi then looks at the Pope and shakes his head that he's no demon. He puts restraints on him and says that the Queen will be handling him, and don't worry, none of his followers are going to be dead. He brings the Pope to the Queen soon after, and he's basically imprisoned for more or less treason, basically saying that this Pope had full intentions of trying to take over the kingdom. Naofumi says that now that's all said and done, the other followers, well, they're kind of encapsulated in, well, ice, so they need soldiers over there right now. So they then basically exchange ideas, and they head over with all the soldiers, and Naofumi dethaws everybody, and they're all arrested. This whole sequence with the church happens a lot quicker, and ironically enough, is all because he has Appa, and all because he can fly and travel at way better paces, and that he can actually travel through the skies and not really worry about being taken down, not easily by any means, and at a really fast rate. Now that's all said and done, Naofumi believes that he just needs to train. Frankly, this whole thing with glass has really opened his eyes, and going back to Shield Frieden and obviously getting his class upgrades is a big major step, in which he does just that and speaks with the local people, hearing of these other ways. He apologizes that they weren't able to help, but he's still trying to figure things out for himself, and that he has a lot to figure out on his own, but he promises that he's going to help in any ways he possibly can in the near future. But this visit to Shield Frieden would go south really quickly. On the way out of there, he's actually taken out of the sky by some magical anklet of some sort, and this takes Appa down. Appa goes spiraling back down, crashing into the ground, and there it is. Ren, Itsuki, and Motoyasu stand there with an army. They say that basically to give Melty back now and that they kidnapped her, but Naofumi disagrees. Naofumi says that it seems like her older sister set her up and tried to get Melty killed, so he won't be giving her back, especially not when she's safe. The Queen already knows about this, staring daggers into Mine. Mine says that that's a lie. That why would you tell the Queen something that's a lie? And Naofumi says that it wasn't a lie, and they have proof of it. Frankly, the Queen and the Shadows have been watching this whole time, and their little visit to the Queen proved that exactly. And well, Mine is shocked to hear this, and Ren and Itsuki stare at Mine in confusion. They basically put down their weapons and apologize for doing that to Naofumi and taking him down. But Motoyasu believes otherwise, saying that he must be lying, but he's obviously not. A bunch of them, who are still loyal to Motoyasu, are about to go charge at Naofumi, but someone gets them to stop. That someone is the arrival of the Queen. Not only that, but all the people that are loyal to her. Immediately, Mine and obviously eventually the King are taken into custody, in which Naofumi thanks her for the help, and Ren and Itsuki apologize on behalf of everybody that did this to him, and in which Naofumi says that it's truly fine. Sometimes you can only see one side of the story because you weren't able to hear the other side, and he gets how it may have looked in the situation, but he did what he needed to do in that moment to make sure Melty was safe, in which they basically thank him for this, especially because they weren't able to help at all either. He actually throws something to Ren and says that he actually handled another business. He looks at it. The Church of the Three Heroes. What is this for? It's simple, actually. They were behind a lot of this. It seems like Mine and the King were in cahoots with them as well, but the Church of the Three Heroes wanted to do far more than just, well, obviously, help the king and the princess out. They actually wanted to take over the kingdom. And well, I was able to put a stop to it before it actually occurred. And Ren and Itsuki are actually impressed to hear this and say that they definitely have a lot to learn from Naofumi. At least that's what they've realized now. Of course, to a certain extent, they're still pretty cocky in their own way, but hearing this and seeing exactly what Naofumi is doing, especially with no past recursor or past bad thing he's gone through, Naofumi is pretty reliable at this sort. But just as everybody begins to leave, Naofumi's actually stopped. Appa begins to turn around and fly away toward a certain direction, in which Naofumi and Raphtalia and Melty run after him, wondering what's even going on, and someone's actually calling out to Appa, and immediately they're transported somewhere else, transported to this sanctuary, the sanctuary of the Philolios, in which there's a woman or a girl in front of them, and she says that her name is Vitoria. Vitoria begins to explain to them that there are a lot of bad people throughout this entire country, and many country alike, but Naofumi is doing his best, and she thanks him for that, and it seems like he is trying to quote-unquote reconcile with all the heroes and get them on the same page. She understands that it's difficult, but it is definitely in the right direction. She approaches Naofumi and thanks him once again, and says that, well, you could say they have her blessing. She approaches Appa and pats him on the head, and it seems like Appa grows in strength greatly and begins to change. Appa begins to change into a normal little kid, seems like to be a normal boy, and she explains that Appa will be her successor. It's a little different, of course, compared to her normal Philolio successor, but this will work just as well, and Appa will gain great strength because of it. And, well, obviously they're shocked to see this, but they thank her profusely for it, that this is going to help in the future waves, and she says that, of course it will, but he needs to promise that they're going to basically make up. The other heroes and him, they will make up, and then eventually they'll be able to fight the waves in every country. He promises that even if they don't make up, he'll be strong enough to defeat all the other countries' waves and make sure to take that burden off of her back. And she smiles, thanking him and thanking, frankly, his whole party, and says that they can now leave. She'll transport them back to the kingdom. He nods, and with that promise made, they're transported back to the Melromark kingdom. When they arrive, the queen is actually under investigation, or investigating the king and the princess Mine, basically finding out that they basically were part of the whole Three Heroes Church plan, and that they committed treason as well, punishing them how she believes to be proper punishment. And Naofumi says that obviously execution isn't really his style. Of course, she can choose whatever she wants to do, but he doesn't recommend execution. In which she actually does thank him later on for this, and tells him to basically hang out, relax, and they'll speak about everything that's going on in the very near future. And about, I would say, a week would pass. Everybody, include obviously Naofumi, Raphtalia, even Melty and Appa, they actually begin training. Naofumi has Melty in his party currently, but says that it's probably not the best to have Melty fight with him. She can definitely be of a lot of help, but he also doesn't want her to get hurt. And Melty basically tells him to stop treating her like a kid, that she is a princess, and he basically says that she kind of contradicted himself, that most princesses are young anyways, so frankly, she's kind of a kid. And she kind of gets frustrated about this, but Naofumi and his party kind of laugh about it. Now that Appa can actually speak to them, it is kind of odd seeing Appa that way, especially when it's a little kid with horns. He has these horns that stick out of his head, and he has insane air bending type of powers. He's not exactly sure how that would even work, especially because he always assumed that the air bending came from his tail, but he guesses that it just transferred over. After about a week of pretty hard training because Naofumi wanted to level them up as much as possible. Rautalia and Appa are almost at a level of 60, and Naofumi is at a level of 60, and he's basically at least unlocked every element, but hasn't upgraded every element. He's starting to upgrade his water to max, which his water is about to be max, his ice close to max as well. A lot of the elements are almost at max capacity, which is good to see. But with a meeting with obviously the other heroes and the queen fastly approaching, he needs to find a new way to basically level up. And it seems like his prayers are answered when they're all brought in for a 4 heroes council meeting. They begin speaking about everything, about what's been going on, and about how Naofumi is not at the forefront of anything, and that Ren and Itsuki even back him up about this and look at Motoyasu, telling him that this woman, mine, she's not a very pleasant person, and that she's being punished under that reason specifically, that she was part of the reason why the church was almost fled right into power. And the queen nods, saying that this is very, very true, and unfortunately her daughter, and in the absence of the queen, it led to this specifically, this power struggle that the princess, or the second princess, was basically trying to get herself into. Motoyasu still does not understand, but the queen says that he's going to have to understand quickly, because frankly they don't have enough time to bicker about things that are just facts. The queen then begins to tell them that there's something coming up. There's something called the special event called Calmira Archipelago event, and they're all invited, where everybody's going to gain bonus experience points, in which Naofumi is astounded to hear this, especially because he was just thinking about the fact that he doesn't have the time to really boost his levels up quick enough before this next wave, or doesn't really have an area to do so. So given this opportunity, the 4 heroes jump at this possible opportunity, and they head over to Calmira. Naofumi then gets on the ship, and unfortunately the other people that are there, or the other heroes, already took all the bunks, so he had to actually share with someone else. And these people that he had to share with go by the name of Larkberg and Therese. These 2 people are interesting to Naofumi. He's not so sure, he can't put his finger on it, but they feel extremely powerful, and on top of that they feel odd, familiar. But even with that in mind, he introduces himself as, well, the legendary elemental hero by the name of Naofumi. And they're shocked to even hear this, but they don't necessarily believe him. Really? Naofumi? I mean, that's not the best alias. I mean, there's no way that you're actually the legendary elemental hero. And Naofumi kind of rolls his eyes and says that they can think whatever they want, and he doesn't really mind. But after they get off the boat, Naofumi has no intention of seeing these people again. Him and his party, obviously Appa and Rautalia, go out immediately to check anything they possibly can, and they begin training at the highest level places he even knows about, grouping up every single monster and just lighting them ablaze. And on top of this, he absorbed practically so much water. He jumped into the giant ocean that's there, or this giant like pond or lake, whatever you want to call it, and begins absorbing water and maxes it out, obviously, in which he has most of his stuff maxed out now. His ice, his water, his air, his fire, 4 completely maxed out and can do some really insane things. And on top of that, he's slowly but surely working on getting these other things maxed out. Lightning being a really hard one to max out, Earth not so much, he's on his way to actually maxing that out. But there's various things that are going to come at basically the expense of a lot of different training, including his lightning. Obviously, he has to kind of make his own lightning rod, and that's the only way to absorb lightning, and that obviously has to do with really bad weather. So frankly, it's not perfect and it won't happen immediately, but it is happening over time. With even lightning at level 4, it is definitely beneficial though. He can use it to actually kill tons and tons of ocean monsters instantly, gaining mass amounts of XP, getting Appa and Rautalia to a max level of 60, and also himself to a level of 75. And this was only after like 2 days of training. After this, Lark and Therese actually meet up with them, asking if they can join, in which they do. They begin training together, and Naofumi didn't have intentions of even leveling up with these people, but they seem like nice people, so he decides to just let them tag along, in which he finds that they're very, very strong, but even Lark and Therese realize how strong Naofumi actually is, and it seems like he's not even trying. He's actually just half-assing it, you can say. He doesn't need to actually try his hardest, and he feels that his other party members need the training more, or at least the experience more. So that continues on for a while. Naofumi gets Raphtalia a new weapon, and he does the same with Appa, getting their stuff revamped and deciding that one day they're gonna actually take this time to basically just relax. So they decide they're gonna relax on the beach, hang out, and during this time, Naofumi decides to just dive underwater, being able to actually breathe underwater using the oxygen from the water and encapsulating his head. And he's able to just swim under at insane speeds because of his basically high elemental of water, until he sees this odd temple, a temple that does not look too good. He basically soars back up, telling Raphtalia and Appa about this, putting these bubbles on their heads as well, and they go diving down there. But when they arrive, they see that this temple has a dragon hourglass, and this dragon hourglass is counting down to the next wave that is due at Calmira, which is in 48 hours. He definitely thinks this is not good, so immediately he goes back to the queen, and she amasses a large naval fleet. He begins to instruct anybody basically that can fight of the plans that are ahead. He will handle most of the monsters that are in the water. He has a plan for that, so everybody needs to stay out of the water and get them all kited to a certain area. If any of them fall in the water, they will die with those monsters as well, and frankly, he can't do anything about it. They all are confused at what they're hearing, but he says that he has a power, or basically a lightning power, that basically electrocutes the water and will be able to kill a lot of those smaller fish army and injure the main boss, and then he can basically vortex the main boss at the very end of it, and that's even without the other heroes' help. He's not even including them really in his plan, and says that they can help, well, any way they can figure out to help, that he should be able to handle this as well, but he won't exclude them entirely. The queen nods, thinking that this guy, he's extremely powerful. It's not only surprising, but makes her feel a lot more confident in everything that's going on. But with that said, it's now time for the wave to begin. With their ships going down and basically traveling toward the next wave, he looks to his right to see Lark and Therese on their own ship. But Lark and Therese give off this aura of not wanting to look at Naofumi, that maybe they're going to do something drastic, and this makes Naofumi uneasy. He begins to think that maybe these people, are they like glass? If they are, this might get really bad, but he's hoping for the best. Maybe they're just being misunderstood by him. But you never know in this world, especially. They arrive and the wave begins. The wave begins to basically send tons and tons of fish monsters, and Naofumi takes this lightning bolt and throws it at the water. This immediately kills, if not kills all of the monsters in the water, excluding the main boss. Naofumi begins to use the water into his advantage, throwing himself to a ship near the main boss, and the other heroes begin to strike at the main boss. But this main fish boss is not even touched by it, and frankly Naofumi was worried about this, that they don't basically have the power to execute what they need to do. Naofumi begins to create this vortex, but just as he begins to do this, Lark goes and defeats the boss in one foul swoop. He looks toward Lark and basically just tosses himself over there using the water, and Raphtalia follows with Appa on top of Appa. He tells Lark that he did good, but he assumes that something else is about to occur. Lark nods and says that he's a smart boy, smart kiddo, but unfortunately they're going to have to die here. But, you know, those three over there are basically not even worth killing. Really, it's only Naofumi. He's the only threat at the moment. Naofumi agrees that he is the only threat. But unfortunately, Lark, unfortunately, you are in a really bad spot. Naofumi begins to create a vortex around them, surrounding the entire environment in water. You are in my domain, Lark. The farthest thing from it. You are far from home, and that's pretty obvious. Unfortunately, at least. Water then pulls Therese underneath, and he tells Naofumi to give her back right now, but she's gone. She is sucked into a whirlpool, and Naofumi put her somewhere else. Then Lark gets sucked away as well, and it's as if they're underwater with nothing they can do. Naofumi has complete control over the situation. That's until someone takes a blast at Naofumi, but he's able to block it with his earth wall, looking up to see Glass. Glass is here and is shocked to see what he's doing to her comrades, thinking that Naofumi is officially out of their league. Far out of their league. Naofumi tells her that he will bring them back up as long as they promise to leave, and that's an order. They need to leave now. Glass says that they can't leave, that he needs to die here, but Naofumi shakes his head. I'm way too strong for you to kill me here. It's not possible. You won't defeat me. But whatever's going on, I want to help, just like I'm helping my world. I've dealt with people worse than you, ironically enough, and you're trying to kill me. But frankly, I don't mind you three. Therese is pretty sweet. Lark calls me kiddo, which kind of is annoying. You truly haven't done anything. You gave me a good fight, that's for sure. But I want to help. I don't want to kill you three. If I have to, I will, for the sake of my world. But I do want to do more than just that. I want to save you people. I want to save everybody here to the best of my ability. And well, Glass doesn't even know what to say. Glass just got hit with some talk no jutsu or something. That's a joke, but sort of. Glass hears what he's saying, and frankly, she's not in a position to negotiate, and she's going to have to accept his deal. Immediately, Naofumi places Lark and Therese back up on the giant fish, and they weren't even gasping for air. Naofumi had no intention of killing them. He dragged them down and actually gave them a way to breathe, just gave them no way to get out. Lark and Therese tell Glass that they're okay, and that maybe this is not a fight that they should be taking, in which Glass agrees, saying that they're kind of out of their league at the moment, and just as she says this, they all three jump through the wave, saying that maybe, just maybe, they'll take Naofumi up on the offer. They leave, and Naofumi stands there in basically victory, in very easy victory, ironically enough. And frankly, that fight hopefully will be the last one between the otherworldly heroes. With the fight completely finished and over, all the ships begin to converge once again and leave. But they begin to speak, or the other heroes begin to speak to Naofumi, asking why he didn't kill them, but he says that they're just like them. I mean, frankly, they're just trying to save their world. That's what they want. But it would be too wrong of him to actually kill them, at least not right now. He's too strong for them to beat at the moment, and frankly, he'll be able to handle it. Especially if it happens in the water again. It's not even close. But with that said and done, Naofumi looks on and begins to think about what's to come of this elemental hero, of himself. What's going to happen in the near future? What trials and tribulations will he go through? Well, that's a story for another day, and that's a wrap for What If Naofumi Was the Legendary Elemental Hero. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like, sub, and comment down below any suggestions you have for future What Ifs. And I want to say I will most likely not be going back for Season 2 on these What Ifs. I think they're good in the moment, and I like the way I wrote them for Season 1. If I have a really popular one, I might choose one or two that I go back and do Season 2 for. But other than that, I want new stuff. I want new and improved stuff. And when Season 2 comes out, I might wait till half of it comes out, maybe full, I'm not sure yet. I might wait till half of Season 2 comes out before I start doing Season 2 content. But yeah, just keep that in mind. But I hope y'all enjoyed nonetheless, and I hope all of y'all have an amazing day. Later.
I don't wanna waste what's left, and